it's about getting into schools and talking to young people, because, you know, I know that people can change. And it's about talking to people and getting them to understand and perhaps step back from violence and prejudice and whatever. And we just need to work together and keep on the good fight there.
Absolutely. Hey there, guys. We are ecstatically happy to announce that we are associated with the Sophie Lancaster Foundation.
The times are changing, and with the unfortunate death of Sophie, those changes have made a massive impact for the future. If Sophie was with us still today, I can guarantee what you are doing will still be reaching so many lives of young teenagers, young adults, and those who wish to be as different as possible. So thank you very much.
To find out more about this incredible foundation and all the work they do, and more importantly, how you can help, head on over to www.sophielancasterfoundation.com.
Hey Jamie, do you like being cozy?
I do.
And do you like staying cozy?
I like that even more.
Then just heading over to www.staycozyclothing.com,
where you can find hoodies, tees, sweaters, and much, much more.
And just enter the Chronicles as one word at checkout to receive 10% off your order.
And make sure you follow them on the Instagram at Stay Cozy Clothing to keep up to date with all the new designs.
Remember, guys, that's the Chronicles as one word at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And now back to this week's episode.
Hello, the internet. You all right? Hope you're all right. This is Mat Ricardo saying that you're listening to the Chronicles of Podcast.
Well, chop a tree down with my ass, boys. Welcome to hashtag WBW, Way Back Wednesday. And these are the Chronicles of Mat Ricardo. Why Matt this week, Jamie?
Why Matt this week, you ask? Well, this Friday, we have the incredible competitive eater, Leah Shuckkever, joining us on the show. So we thought, why not throw back to another person who is quite simply amazing and can do incredible things that I believe I say in the intro to this episode that make you go, what the fuck did I just say?
He is the extraordinary gentleman, Mr. Mat Ricardo, who can throw a tablecloth straight off with everything still on, then attach said tablecloth with everything still on the table, who can balance books off a knife in his mouth. Like, what? I woke up one day and just go, do you know what I want to do with my life? I want to balance 6 books with a glass of wine on top of out of my mouth with a knife in my mouth.
It's nuts.
Unbelievable.
I just don't get, like, they're incredible to watch, don't get me wrong. I fucking love watching Matt's videos, but I just don't get where he gets these ideas from. Who looks at a plate of glass with some wine glasses on it and think, balancing that on the end of a knife sticking out of my mouth? Why the fuck not?
It's just, and the man is lovely as well. He's really inspirational how he started out on the streets, getting to be on America's Got Talent and smell the wonderful Terry Crews up close and personal. I love that story so much. But like, fair play to Terry as well for letting him stab the knife through his fingers. In that, insane. Matt is quite simply extraordinary. And I highly recommend that you go and check out his live shows. He's currently touring. He's been touring a lot in London. I think doing quite a few shows in London. And he also has his podcast, which obviously happened after we interviewed him, which is called Imagination and Junk. So go and subscribe and check that bad boy out as well.
And the man is a fine owner of a collection of beautiful suits, which you will see if you watch the YouTube for this episode.
This interview is quite simply glorious. Matt was really forthcoming, really humble, and obviously his best friends with a wrestling legend in William Regal as well. So this conversation takes all sorts of different routes and journeys, etc. So please come along for the ride.
You could say his story is quite simply extraordinary.
I like it. Jamie!
Yes, sir.
Any final words?
Mr. Ricardo, you absolute legend. This was so much fun to talk to you. Hopefully we can get to do it again in the future, and hopefully we get to see you actually live and do this thing in person. People would enjoy this one.
That would be glorious. I'm sorry for almost cutting you off there, Jamie. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us. We loved every single second of it. We are so excited to re-release this on our new channel. Guys, enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the Chronicles of Mat Ricardo.
There he is.
Hello there.
Hello.
How are we doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm all right.
He looks like about to start a game, playing gaming with the microphone. What a phenomenal room, though.
Oh, thank you.
Sam was having a bit of a nose. Don't mind me.
Feel free.
Oh, there's all the suits you were talking about on I noticed on your social media.
That's not even all of them.
I bet it's not.
Yeah, you've got to have addictions.
Everyone's got their vices.
I mean, you don't have to have addictions. That's not true. Don't quote me on that. You absolutely do not have to have addictions.
That quote's going in the press.
Drinking is fourth espresso of the day.
So you'll be absolutely wired in the next half an hour. It's like, oh, and this happened. I did this.
This is what it takes to maintain the conscious me.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, by the way.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
No worries. Yeah, I remember I was listening to How To Wrestling and they mentioned you and I was like, oh, let's have a look. I was like, whoa, okay. We're talking me, man, and this guy.
I love How To Wrestling. I love those guys. I did their William Regal episode because I happened to be in the area and I'm friends with William Regal. So I went over and we did. It was really fun.
Now I'm looking at it. Did you do Billy Kirkwood's podcast during that lockdown?
Hang on. Yes.
I knew you looked bloody familiar. Yeah.
I had to really think about it.
I thought so. But how we normally do these things is I do a little intro and then we just bombard you with questions.
Sure.
Sound good?
Brilliant.
Wonderful. Right, let's get going. Ladies and gents, today we have a very special guest of us. Today's guest is quite frankly an extraordinary gentleman. This man can do things which, when I watch, I hold my mouth open in disbelief and say things like, fuck off, no way, that's impossible. This man is a variety performer like you've never seen. He does stunts, he does tricks, he does magic, he does comedy. And on top of all of that, he has a mighty fine collection of suits. His talents have been seen all over the world as street performances, cabaret, and even on America's Got Talent. Today, we welcome to Chronicles the extraordinary gentleman, Mat with 1T Ricardo.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not sure how I feel about being the person that inspires you to say "fuck off."
I mean that in the nicest way.
Okay, well, all right then.
Absolutely brilliant. What trick was that, Jamie? Or was it just in general?
It was the table, the double tablecloth. I'll never forget the first time I saw that. That old chestnut.
Well, it's kind of. I mean, I hate to use this word, but yeah, it's kind of become my little sort of signature trick. To the point that it's been stolen by other people now. So I feel that's an achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that a postman. I saw it on Twitter that a postman was like, probably no tablecloth in it when you picked a parcel up.
Yeah, obviously, I had no idea that he knew what I did because I am not in any way well known, But it was very funny. He did it in such a perfect kind of, I don't know, like a kind of 1970s sitcom postman way. He waited until I was just leaving and then he shouted it in front of everyone. Oh, mate, pulling out the tablecloth. Ah! I just sort of stopped and went, son of a bitch.
This is all I'm going to be known for now. Wonderful.
Famous in the post office.
But On a serious note, Matt, how has your last year been for you?
It's been a plate of cold fucking shit, isn't it? Here's the thing. I can whinge about it, and it is, it is easy to whinge about it. I'm a live performer, and I've spent, it's been my only job since I was a teenager. 30 odd years I've been a professional live performer, traveling the world. I spend so much time on planes and hotels, bouncing around to any country that for some reason wants my stupid act. And within a week last year, my entire year's gigs just all got cancelled.
No.
Everything, The last gig I had before the sort of, there was a moment when we all knew that the pandemic was a thing, but we didn't quite realize what it was,
Yeah.
And during that time, the last gig I did was, it was in a ballroom of a hotel near Heathrow Airport, bog standard kind of corporate event thing. But it was, I was the headline cabaret for a convention of boarding school head teachers, literally from all over the world. So I looked out on the stage at like 50 tables, each one with people from a different country in the world, like the worst possible thing to be doing. And I immediately started making jokes about how we were all going to die. And because you can't not address the elephant in the room, So I said, it's absolutely my honor and privilege to be the last piece of entertainment you'll ever see. And I was like joking, it's funny. And then I get home, and that week, I spent the whole week getting emails saying, that tour, that's off. Edinburgh Festival, that's off. That gig in Canada or Australia or Europe, off. And by the end of the week, I was like, well, I've got nothing now. I've got no income. And I don't know what to do. It was so weird.
Was it because of that joke, though, that everything got cancelled? It wasn't a pandemic, was it? It's probably because of the joke you made.
let's say it's the pandemic. That joke is also currently I'm doing awful damage in India. That was a bad.
No, that's phenomenal.
But yeah, so it's been an all. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It's been a fucking awful year. Although I'm lucky that I've got a wife who has a real job and can work at home. So I've been able to spend more time with her, and money hasn't been as terrifying as it would be if we were both freelancers. So, a lot of people have got it a lot worse. But having said that, at the moment, I'm just starting to take bookings, and the diary is starting to fill up again. And it's a nice feeling,
I bet it is. Do you remember what you do?
I literally today, this sounds ridiculous, but today, because I've got a gig this coming weekend.
Oh, wonderful.
Just a basic bog standard gig, and it's so nice. So I had to get all my props out and like clean them and go, okay, can I still do this trick? Let's just give it a quick, yep, seems to work. Okay, fine. It is weird having not done it for more than a year now.
That must be bad. But other than obviously everything you just explained, did you decide to like learn a language or bake or teach yourself anything like brand new at all?
Kind of. I didn't learn a language. I didn't bake. Because I'm, a vain, shallow show business asshole. I need the if not adoration, then at least vague tolerance of an audience. So I started a YouTube channel. I started learning how to make like YouTube things, and it started off as I will just sit at my desk where I am now and just talk to a camera and do little vloggy things just to keep, creating something, to keep the sort of artistic, juices flowing. And then I really got into sort of learning how to create good looking videos and use cinematography and lighting and stuff. So I've been putting out quite regular YouTube videos, and they started out obviously shit, but because when you start something, you're shit at it, and but it did other, of course. But then it's been interesting and quite rewarding for me to every time I put a new video, I'm trying to set myself a challenge to put something new in it, to learn something, use a new technique, and now I'm pretty happy with what I'm putting out, and my YouTube channel is slowly starting to grow a little audience. So that's a really nice thing, and I'm going to keep doing that even when the live work, comes back, because it's another sort of avenue for me to inflict myself on people.
If you didn't get enough of me, you can now look at me online.
And YouTube is the worst for that. Hey, subscribe, turn on notifications, follow me on all the social media. Love me, please love me.
It's one of them ones you feel ridiculous doing it, but if you don't do it, you feel like, shit, how are these people going to know where I am in the world? I've kind of got to do this, otherwise people aren't going to get me.
Yeah. I've just written a script for a video where I basically satirize YouTubers. And I'm going to start it by saying, hi guys, don't forget to smash that button. And it feels so dirty. But,
You'd be in the shower like, just so unclean.
I think I spend most of my time going, look, I don't really care about YouTube. It's just a nice outlet for me. But, please subscribe. Please, I need the validation. I don't have people clapping anymore.
Please, can you do that whole hit the subscribe button up here? I do that here and do that. Yeah, it's just here.
There's no way to do it without sounding just awful, without feeling awful. But I think it's interesting because it feels to me like when I first started, a million years ago as a street performer, a lot of people who start street performing feel really weird about asking for money at the end of their show, because it's like they feel it kind of, it's rude. It cheapens the glorious artistic experience. It is a weird thing to do, to do a show to a bunch of strangers and then say, right, now you kind of owe me money. And of course they don't, they cannot pay. But the beautiful thing about street theatre is enough people do that it works, So for me, it's kind of, saying, please subscribe, please follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It is kind of like that. It's like, look, I've got to say it because this is the only venue I've got right now. So I'm not going to feel bad about saying, if you like this, then do the things that will mean you get more of it, Yeah,
absolutely.
Makes perfect sense.
But it's weird.
It is weird. Right, take us back. And so what was the plan for young Master Ricardo? Was performance something you always wanted to do? Or was it something like you said you started at 13, but was that like what you literally always wanted to do?
No. When I was a kid and a sort of mid-early teenager, I was a really shy kid. I was very shy. I didn't really play well with others. I had a very bad stutter. I was all the things that do not make any sort of performer. I never wanted to be in front of people doing anything. I was always absolutely happiest locking myself away in my room and like writing a game on my little computer or making something or any of that stuff on my own, And I had very little idea really what I wanted to do with my life. I think if you had asked me at the age of like 14 what I wanted to be, I would not have known, But then I went on holiday with my parents to the, it's funny, I was just there last week, to the Yorkshire seaside town of Whitby. Famous for Whitby Goth Week and being the place where Dracula was set, and they had a folk music festival, and my parents every year took us on holiday the same week as the folk music festival. I don't know why. They had no interest in folk music. They for every other week of the year, they never showed any interest in folk music. But for 1 week a year, we'd go to Whitby for the folk festival. And my dad would make me see so many Morris dancers. It was awful. It was deeply traumatic, or at least boring. So, but it was there that I saw a gang of street performers called the Fabulous Salami Brothers. And
great
this
name.
Was great name. This was in the sort of mid-80s, and they were a kind of amorphous, like, sometimes there were like 3 of them, sometimes there were like 10 of them, and they all had fake Italian names that ended in Salami. So there was Ricardo Salami, there was Mussalami, there was Chipolata Salami, it was ridiculous. And they were just these grubby little anarchic street urchins who did this brilliant street show, and they did like feats of strength, and they did like unicycling and magic and comedy and audience participation. And the front man was a juggler. And he wasn't a spectacularly good juggler, but he was okay, and he was funny, and he was charismatic. And from the first time I saw them, they just blew my mind. I mean, I just fell in love with them and with the idea of the street performing, which is something very special. You know, the idea that just by skill and craft and sheer force of will, you can turn a place that isn't designed to be a venue into a venue. You don't need a theatre. You can just say, I'm going to do it here. And by using learned skills, you can make it into a theatre. You can arrange your audience. You can, you know, and you make it into something different and something better just for the time when you're there. And then it vanishes again and it's evaporated and the magic's gone, you know. So I saw their show and I loved it. And I went back and saw every single show they did. And then the next year I came back and saw every single show they did. And slowly I realized I wanted to be them. And then I got myself a book from the library on how to juggle, and got 3 rubber balls from the pet shop in our street and taught myself to juggle. And then I guess 2 years after that, I did my first ever bit of busking just around the corner in Whitby from where I'd seen them.
That's amazing.
And you know, yeah, and then from that point on, you know, I mean, at that point, I went to college, I studied child psychology because it was interesting, but I knew that I didn't want to do anything with that. I knew I wanted to be a performer. So after that, I washed up at Covent Garden, and Covent Garden was everything to me. It was where I found my real family. You know, all these other people like me who had an idea of what they wanted to do and be and didn't know where to do it. And we all found the Piazza at Covent Garden in London, and we all found a place where we could try out the ideas that were in our heads in front of people. And if you were good and if you worked hard, you could make a modest living out of it. And that's amazing. And I was 17 when I did that. And it taught me, that I was there off and on for 2 decades, and it taught me virtually everything.
That is incredible. How did you come up with the sort of like, what are you going to do when you're street performing then? Because obviously you say you do juggling, but surely you had other bits in there as well.
At that point, I was a straight juggler. Okay. I always like to use, even from back then, I like to use non-traditional juggling things. So I did do, I did some flaming torches and balls and stuff, but my finale was sink plungers. So my finale was I'd balance 1 sink plunger on my nose, juggle 3 sink plungers, let it fall down and go into 4 sink plungers in a nice big high juggling pattern. That was nice,
That's
it was just something a bit different,
Yeah.
Funnily enough, a few years ago, I did a show where as part of the show, I interviewed people on stage that I liked, other performers. And one of them was Dave Gorman. And Dave Gorman, when he first started on the cabaret circuit, he used to juggle sink plungers. And we were like, dude, we've got this link. It's so weird.
That's amazing. So you like I said, so juggling was the first thing you learned in your act. That was where it all started from.
Yeah, I still consider myself a juggler. I do other things. I do. I mean, obviously, I do comedy, but in terms of skills, I do a little bit of magic, but not really. And essentially, everything I do, I kind of think comes from juggling, in that it's all dexterity based. And for me, I make up my own definitions here, but for me, the thing that sets it apart from juggling is that it's dexterity and sleight of hand, but not used to fool you, just used to impress you, So yeah, everything, even my tablecloth trick, I see that as juggling because it's manipulation of objects. I mean, it's all pretty vague at this point, but
I get what you mean.
But yeah, and it is true that I do find it hard to describe exactly what I am, It's outside of speciality act or variety artist, I usually say juggler and comedian, but my standard cabaret set doesn't really have much juggling in it. So I don't know. Yeah.
What made you want to add more skills to the act other than just your standard juggling? Because obviously you get people who are like, they're a magician, but you do tons.
I really like learning things. I like learning skills. Like in a couple of years ago, my last sort of Edinburgh one-man show was all about that. It was all about learning things that people thought I couldn't learn. So for that, I learned knife throwing, lock picking. I learned how to escape from handcuffs while juggling 3 balls without stopping juggling 3 balls. Yeah, it's really silly. And I'm one of those people that just, I am still that kid who was shy and always and felt comfort in locking himself in his room and learning something. I'm still that kid. So I like having an idea and realizing, well, I can't do that, but the one thing I'm good at is I'm good at learning things. So the fun is in getting to the point where I can do it, And a lot of these things are not so hard to learn. Like lock picking, anyone can learn to pick a lock, and people should. People should learn to pick locks because nobody knows how their front door works. Nobody knows. You put a key in your lock and you know how, you know that you put a key in that hole and it opens and closes it. You don't know really. Most people don't know how or why. So it's worth learning that. And if you're a young person and you learn lockpicking later in life, it will open a lot of doors. I thank you. Actual joke.
Interview done. That was the pièce de résistance right there. But then again, Matt, if you notice that burglary rates increase, then nobody should ever learn to pick locks or anything.
Yeah, it suddenly stops being funny.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, the short answer is I just like learning things, and I'm really lucky in that I've got a job and I've got a tiny little following, but I've got enough of a following where I can say, I'm going to do a show, I've learned some new things, and a few people will go, okay, cool, let's go and see what he learned, and that's nice.
That's amazing, because you've got to have determination as well to actually learn, because obviously after a while, like you said, everyone's shit at the start, and then eventually you'll actually get to it. So obviously most people that learn things go, oh, I'm going to do this, and then halfway through they go, oh, do you know what? I can't be asked. I'll just leave that. So,
and usually when you get to that point, you think you're like halfway through, but usually you're like way further than halfway through. It's always that last little push at the end that gets you to that point, but you think you've got so much further to go, I think. But yeah, no, I just like learning things, and I'm lucky enough to have a platform where I can hopefully make them entertaining and turn things that aren't necessarily entertainment skills into entertainment skills.
What I love about your act, though, is it isn't the whole performance you have. You've got this character as well of the extraordinary gentleman, like the vaudeville sort of feel. Where did that come from? And what made you want to add like a character to the performance?
It is. I mean, it's you guys are wrestling fans, right? So
huge.
So that the old saying in wrestling that the best wrestling characters are the real person just turned up to 11. Yeah. So that's certainly what it is for me. It's as you can see, I am here not in a suit, but so people often, my own agent saw me in the hotel in the lobby of a hotel. We walked past each other, and because I wasn't wearing a suit, he didn't recognize me. My own agent. I had to stop him and say, Lee, and he was like, oh shit, Matt. So people think I always wear suits, but I do not. But yeah, I like. I started wearing suits and dressing nicely when I was a street performer, partly because I liked, street performers are a scruffy bunch, and I really like going against that and not being what people expect of me. That's always interesting and a good thing to do, I think. So I liked being on the tube, going to work in a nice suit, and being in that. Not that I was ashamed of being a street performer, absolutely proud of it, but I liked that the other people on the train would not have been able to guess what I did for a living. That's fun. And also the kind of performers, my act, a lot of my work is kind of inspired. It has its roots in acts of 100 or so years ago, specifically a genre of performer called the gentleman juggler, who were, for a few decades big. And these performers were always sort of dapper gentlemen who would have a stage set like a bar or a restaurant, and they would come in and they'd have a cast of like waiters, and maybe they'd have a date, and they'd come in and just play out a scene of a gentleman having a night out, but everything would be a trick. So they'd walk in and throw their hat onto the hat stand. They'd be served soup and they'd spin it on the end of their umbrella, and everything would be a trick. And I started researching these old acts and thinking that's beautiful, because it's a way of presenting, essentially showing off, but it doesn't seem like you're showing off. It just seems like you're cool, So it's suddenly you've sidestepped that kind of, hey, do you want to see a trick? Do you want to see a trick? And everyone, when someone says that, says, no, okay, But instead of that, it's like, yeah, exactly. But instead of that, you're just, hey, this is how I do things. It's not this, I'm a gentleman juggler, so I don't just take my hat off and put it on that. I throw it across the room. It's just a nice way to sort of fuse your art form with your performing character and make it a little bit more seamless and a little bit more interesting. So I started veering towards that pretty early, and so that's where the suit came from as well. And that's where the tablecloth trick, and I do tricks with bottles and spoons and trays, and it all comes from that.
It's really funny as well. We talk about the tablecloth again. Sorry to go back to it, but like people have been doing that for ages, but never ever once has anyone gone, what about if I just put it back on? Like, everyone's like, oh, look at this, and they throw it off and go, look at that. But nobody, until you, has ever gone, I could put this shit back on, actually. So
and that's how you start to think when you do this for a job. You go, because for a while pulling it off was my finale, and then you do it enough times and you end up, having a drink in a bar after a gig enough times, and you start to sort of think to yourself, well, if I was gonna top that, how would I do it? And I had a few different ideas. I had an idea of pulling the tablecloth off and then appearing something from behind it. I did that once with a small child.
What?
It was very funny. It was for one particular show, and it was just, and I'll tell you how it's done because it was ridiculous. So basically, I was performing in front of a closed curtain. So I pulled the tablecloth off and just held it in front of me. And while people are clapping, this kid just climbed through the bottom of the split in the curtain through my legs, so I could just do that, and the kid would come out of the tablecloth, and he just turned to me and said, "You're shit, mate," and walked off. It was so great. But that's not really practical because I don't have a child, so I'd have to employ a child to come on tour with me. It becomes a whole thing. So I thought, it like almost as a kind of joke on myself. It's like, well, the obvious thing you do is you put it back. And then you start to think, well, would that be possible? And I hadn't seen anyone else do it. So I researched, and no one else has done it. There's one guy in like the 30s who claimed that he had done it, but refused to demonstrate the trick, which is not, So I just spent 6 months in my bed sit I had then. It was a long time ago. Just trying it in various different ways and smashing a bunch of stuff. And,
I was going to say,
spent
so much money on.
I was going to say, how much stuff have you smashed over these years?
I smashed some stuff, because for this trick you can't use like plastic stuff because it's too light. You have to use china. So, but there's a big catering supply store in the West End, and they know me very well by now. I walk in and they're like, juggler, So and then I practiced it and eventually found the method to do it. And I remember vividly, I'll never forget the first time it worked. And it was in my little bedsit in Wood Green where my table just about fit in my living space. And it came on and it worked. And I just fell back on the bed, just giggling, because it's like, well, if it works once, now I've got to spend the next year of my life making sure it works every fucking time.
Yeah.
And that's where the work begins. And it's almost evil when it shows you that it's possible. Because, now it's possible. Now I've really got to learn it. Because if it hadn't ever worked, then I could easily just go, well, it's not possible. But I know it's possible now, so I've got to fucking learn it.
God damn it.
It's the same with, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's another, a slightly more recent routine I've been doing for about 5 years, where, the trick where you put your hand on a table with the fingers spread and then you sort of bang a knife in between your fingers really fast.
Yes. Did Terry Crews shit himself quite a bit, or?
Oh yeah, Terry Crews. Can I just say, Terry Crews smells delightful. Oh that man.
So I had to bring it up. He is a fucking legend.
He's lovely. He's such a nice guy. He's one of those people that everyone gets on with immediately. I can't imagine anyone, meeting him and walking away going, "Oh, he's a bit of a douchebag." It's like, no, he's just a delight.
Yeah.
But
Sorry,
so I
you were
learned.
saying.
No, it's right. So I learned that knife trick, and then I did the same thing as the tablecloth. It's like, well, how would you top it? So you do it blindfolded. So I put coins on my eyes and I put gaffer tape over my face so I can't see it, and then I do it again. And it's great because as I'm doing it, people don't know what I'm doing. It looks really weird. This man sat at a table saying nothing, just putting gaffer tape over his eyes. And then when I get the knife again and people realize, you get this lovely moment where people go, "Oh God, no. Oh no. I've had such nice heckles in that moment. I had someone at a club in complete, because it's one of those sort of big tension routines where you could hear a pin drop. And I had someone at a club from the back shout, "You don't need to do this." It's my favorite. I was like, yeah, but I do,
How many times did that go wrong before you mastered it?
I mean, a bit. I funnily enough, I used, because, again, there's no way to practice that other than you put your hand and you get a knife, and the knife isn't very sharp, but still, you're banging
a knife in the hand
metal.
hurts.
Yeah. And, I cut myself a bunch of times, and I just had a little tube of super glue next to me, and you just super glue it up and keep going because you've got to learn it. But now it's pretty clean. There you go. At the moment, nothing. Completely clean hand. No cuts. And I did it a couple of days ago.
That's mental, but wonderful. But I did want to discuss actually the mindset that goes into developing tricks. Like, is there a thought process you go through when doing it, or is it a simple case of, "Oh, I've seen that before, I'm going to top that"?
Sometimes it's, I think people approach it in different ways. I've never really been, because I'm not, although I'm at heart and in my roots a juggler, I was never like a spectacularly amazing juggler. I was never one of those circus guys who can put up a million billion things. I was a decent juggler. So I was never really interested in the tricks that other jugglers or other magicians would find impressive. And a lot of people are. A lot of people want to almost treat it like a sport. It's like juggling is always how many, and I was never interested in that. For me, all of these skills have just been a way to communicate with an audience and do fun theatre, So I've always thought of what would an audience like to see, what would they not see coming. That's always fun, What games can I play with the audience? There's a French clown teacher who describes comedy as being based on a game. You play games with each other. So there's a trick in my one-man show that is basically a very serious. I'm not going to give it away because it's too much of a good gag, but it's basically a very, very serious lead-up where I tell the story of a performer in the 30s who legitimately died on stage doing a trick, and then I do the trick. But it ends with a kind of punchline. And, the trick in that routine is the least important part of the whole thing. The most important part is that I can act well enough to really impart that this is a true story, that it's serious. I can write well enough that I can tell a good story, and then it's got this big funny punchline. So the trick is fairly basic. The trick's not the most important thing, and I think it's like it's like wrestling. It's, I always use, whenever I'm directing things, which I occasionally do, I always use the wrestling analogy of, if you come into a wrestling show halfway through a match and you see two people having a wrestling match, it's fine. It's good. Yay. Hooray. Oh, they did a drop kick. Brilliant. That's great. But if you are a fan and you know who these people are, what their backgrounds are, why they're fighting, who that third person is, why the referee might be crooked, why the crowd is chanting that, all of that stuff. The year of backstory leading up to this match involving character and betrayal and all that stuff, then suddenly you are on the edge of your seat before the first punch has been thrown, because it's about theatre. It's not about the tricks. And so that's what I try and do. I try and, people think they're seeing a kind of silly little cabaret act, which they absolutely are, but actually you use all the same techniques as high-level theatre, but just to get a different thing out of them, to get, in my case, a big laugh or a gasp,
It's a beautiful analogy.
Thank you.
It was. It really is.
I don't know if it made any sense.
It did to us because we're wrestling fans, but
yeah.
I was just in awe of you. That's why I just sat here like, yeah. Yeah.
I always use wrestling analogies because wrestling is like, I don't mean to diss it because, I love it, but wrestling is like a sort of distilled version of theatre, a sort of simplified idea of you can learn all about theatre by watching wrestling because you can point out what's happening and why and how and what it's achieving. And, it's a beautiful thing. I've got friends who are like serious like playwrights and directors, and I've taken them to wrestling shows and they've been like, oh, I get it now. Oh God, no, I get it. Brilliant. Yeah. Oh, this is clever. It's like, yes, it's clever.
So what I love is your imagination when it comes to the tricks. I've never looked at a tablecloth and a yo-yo and thought, do you know what? I'm going to use this yo-yo and whip the tablecloth off the table. That defines me how your imagination comes up with things like this. But out of all the tricks that you think of, how many would you say are successful?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, most are because I don't set my sights very high.
Whipping a tablecloth off with a yo-yo, you're like, I don't set my sights that high.
I was really bored on a gig in Dubai, and there was a toy shop, so I bought a yo-yo. It's true. It's true. I just blocked out my mind. It's interesting. That's a really interesting question. I think a lot of tricks, and this ties into me doing stuff on YouTube. Actually, a lot of tricks, I'll have an idea and I'll learn it, and I'll learn to do the trick. Maybe not every single time, but some or mostly. But then I'll think, well, there's not really a place where this fits in my act or my show, and also it would involve carrying around all these extra props. Yeah, so I, quite often I don't bother doing it. But then there's a big flight case over there with tons of props in, and occasionally I'll drag out and I'll do it for a YouTube thing, or I'll do it. Maybe there'll be some decently paying sort of corporate event. I don't know if there's a coffee company that want to pay me, then I'll do a thing with coffee cups. One of those things. There is one thing that I got really good at and was gonna put in my show, and then kind of lost my nerve with it, which was about 4 years ago when I was putting together this theatre show where I learned a bunch of new skills, and one of them was someone challenged me to learn the quick draw, the cowboy fast draw.
Oh yeah.
So I did some research and I found a dodgy guy in Manchester who would sell me guns. Not actual real guns, but
dodgy guy in Manchester. Sounds trusted.
Well, yeah, There was this guy in Manchester who had a website that sold line dancing stuff and cowboy stuff. So he had guns and gun belts. So I got a couple of Colt 45 Army replica blank firing revolvers, and I got a Mexican quick draw rig, which is beautiful gun belt. It's all it's gorgeous. And I started learning to quick draw, and I learned all the kind of tricks, all the spinning and stuff. That came pretty easy because I'm a juggler. But the actual quick draw, it turned out I had a knack for it. There were some things I've tried to learn and just haven't got there. There's still an element of knack or not knack, But this I seem to have an actual knack for. And you can get apps that listen to the sound of a gun being drawn and fired, even when there's no blank in it, just the sound of a hammer coming down. So there's apps that can time you and measure how fast you are. You put the app there, you say go, it waits a random amount of time, then it goes beep, and when it goes beep you have to draw, cock, aim and fire, and then the sound of you clicking the trigger stops you and it tells you how long you took. So I started practicing quite hard, and I got world class. I got I could do it. I could draw, cock, aim, fire faster than a person can blink, legit.
What?
Yeah, but so I thought, oh, this is brilliant. I'm good at this, because sometimes things are hard, but sometimes skills come easy. I was like, this is coming easy. Oh, this is going to be great. I'm really good at this. And it's a cool skill. And I wear a nice suit with a gun belt underneath. How dope do I look? So then I started writing the routine. So I researched the history of the gun and the history. and it's just got a horribly ugly history. You know, these are the guns that they always say, the gun that won the West, which means the gun that committed genocide on brown people. You know, exactly. And I suddenly went, do I want to be doing this routine, being the white guy on stage, playing with the gun without addressing what this tool is actually for? It's for killing people, you know. And it was a thing that swung a war and helped a colonization, you know. And I just suddenly felt queasy. So I made a YouTube video about it, and then saying that, and I put it in that box and it stays there. And I've never done it on stage. It was so weird to get to that point and get that little excitement of going, oh shit, I'm good at this. I'm going to look so cool. And then you suddenly go, yeah, but there's a bunch of people looking at me who won't see this as being quite so cool, you know. And I never want to be, you know, I'm a populist entertainer. I want everyone in my audience, regardless of who they are, how they identify, what their background is, I want them to have a good time. If there's one person who isn't, that's my fault. And if I can change, you know, if I can not do something that will help that, I'm going to do that, you know. So yeah, that's a good example of a thing that I learned, but it stays in that box.
I mean, has there been anything that you've really, really wanted to work but couldn't get to work?
Ooh, I played for a while. Most of those tricks, I can get them to work occasionally, but just not good enough that I can rely on it on stage. So they end up on YouTube or Instagram. You know, if I can do it enough times and it will work once, then I'll film it. There's a trick where I have two tables side by side, both laid with stuff. One's got a tablecloth on, one hasn't. And in one movement, I move the tablecloth from one table to the other table, which I can do most of the time, but not every time. And I fucked it up once on stage in a very big gig, so I lost my nerve with it. And it didn't matter because you know, I talked to the audience enough. I've got enough of a rapport that I could reset the props and do it again, and then it worked. It was fine, but still, you know, I think I kind of lost my nerve with that one a little bit.
Yeah, that's understandable.
On the flip side of that, though, are there any tricks that you're like, this isn't going to work, I ain't going to be able to manage this, and then you've gone, fuck me, I did it?
Ooh, I wasn't sure about the blindfolded knife thing.
Understandable.
Yeah, that's one that's still that's the piece that is one of my go-to pieces. This sounds horribly arrogant. This is one of my go-to pieces when I go on TV because it's completely silent. They can light it really nicely. It's minimal props, you know, and they really like me to do it with celebrities and stuff. Whenever I do that, when I'm sitting there putting on the tape on TV or on stage, I'm always thinking, this isn't going to always work. There's going to be a point at which this one just fucks up at some point, but let's hope it's not today. Yeah. And it usually works. So far, it has always worked.
Is this the time I shout, ow, my fucking hand on national TV?
Yeah, exactly.
So I mentioned earlier, you know, we spoke about your live performance, but I think it needs to be noted just how many places you've performed. You know, you've done headline shows, theatre residencies, street performances with huge crowds. There's photos on your website. The crowds for the street performances are insane.
Oh, thank you.
And it's like Americans Got Talent. You've even toured with William Regal, as we've said. Mm-hmm. But what was it you think that got people to notice your act in order for all this to happen? Was there like a specific performance, someone special in the crowd, a viral video, whatever it may be?
I don't think so. I don't think there was. I think it's tempting to sort of see the showbiz, for want of a better phrase, as, you know, you're working for a big break, that, you know, and those things do kind of happen, but that's rare. Mostly, I would say, you know, the way my career's gone, it's just, you just keep plugging away, you just keep working, you just keep doing your damn job, and hopefully you're moving slowly upwards rather than downwards, you know. It is as simple as that. And the thing that I like, and one of my strengths, I think, is that I can work pretty much anywhere, you know. That's one thing you learn from being a street performer is flexibility in venue and in what sort of audience you're working to, you know. So I've worked in nice big theatres, I've worked, you know, some lovely big rooms, I've worked on television, I've also worked on rainy street corners and in clubs and, you know, burlesque rooms and cabaret clubs and comedy clubs. And, you know, so I'm equally at home on a kind of posh, you know, stage in a ballroom in front of a, you know, I mean, without, well, okay, I am gonna do a huge name drop, but it is the perfect example of this. A couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to be the headline cabaret act for a private party for Prince Charles and Camilla.
Wow.
At his palace, at whatever the palace is called that isn't Buckingham Palace, around the corner. I don't know, his place, his flat.
His pad.
It's a bit more than a flat. And that's one of those gigs where you kind of think, how the fuck did I get here? You know, when you know, I have a memory of coming off stage, all kind of sweaty and excited, being at the back of the room, and then Prince Charles went on stage and starts talking about me. And I'm just like, that's ridiculous. That's Prince Charles. He just said my name. This is literally like a weird cheese dream, you know. Yeah, at the same time, you know, that same month, I was flying to Switzerland to do a festival that was all street shows. They were paying me a retainer to be there, but I was making money from putting my hat out at the end of the show. And, you know, I like that that all those different kinds of gigs can coexist. I think that's one of my strengths, certainly. And I think that helps your career grow. You know, the more people you're in front of, the more, you know, the more work you can do. It's especially now after a pandemic, it's just, I take gigs not so much on, are they going to pay me well? Although sometimes, but you know, if someone says, you know, do you fancy doing this? And it's interesting, and I haven't done it before, or I've done it before and I liked it. You know, I'm lucky that I get to do that. I get to have little crazy little adventures. I'm about to. I'm sadly I cannot tell you what I'm doing on air, but I will happily tell you once we stop recording. But I'm about to go on an adventure that will take me to, you know, a long way away for a decent amount of time to do something that I haven't done before, and that'll be fun. And that's the great thing about my job, is that people, you know, I think people realize that they can slot me into a lot of different places. So I think my success, what of it I have, is because of that. That was a very long, rambling answer.
It was beautiful.
Everyone listens to us talk all the time, so it's absolutely...
I can talk, can't I?
Well,
Jesus.
It's beautiful. But that's tied in so magnificently with my next question. Firstly, I'm really looking forward to hearing that after we're recorded. Secondly, like you said, you've done your theatre with your one-man shows at festivals, on national, international tours. You've been to Australia, South Korea, Finland, Germany. What's it like to do what you love all over the world? It must be an unbelievable feeling.
It's the best. It's the best. I mean, you know, the first kind of 15-ish years of my career, I was basically a street performer in London. Now, you know, it was like going to the office 4 days a week. And then when it starts to take off a little bit, and you just, it's such an immense, ridiculous privilege to not only to travel around the world, but to meet the people via making them laugh and making them happy. There's nothing better. You know, I mean, like, you know, I did this beautiful comedy festival in Busan, South Korea, where, as I say that, my brain fills with these little fractured memories of having amazing Korean barbecue, getting drunk on a Korean drink called soju, which they made me drink.
Made you drink?
They made me. No, they did. The festival director said, "You must drink this. This is the Korean drink, and it's like sake. It's amazing."
Wow.
So I'll tell you a story from that festival that sums up how surreal, you know, and you know, my career, my life is not always as exciting as this. There are long periods where, you know, you get a bit scared of where the next gig's coming from. That's, you know, that's the life of a freelancer. But so I go to Busan, South Korea, to do a short run of my one-man show in a comedy festival. And they say, so the first night you get there, there's going to be a small sort of opening night gala thing. And all the acts are expected to do a little bit. So I was like, okay, fine. I get there. the small opening night gala has a live audience of 3,000 people and is being televised live. But I didn't know that until I walked into the venue. So I'm like, yeah, we'll just do this and then we'll go get some. Oh, shit. And the whole thing's got like big corporate sponsorship, and I get interviewed by someone and they give me, and this is the point where my brain just melted. They give me one of those old-fashioned sort of glass Coke bottles, all sealed with Coke in it, and it's got me on it. It's got a picture of me on it as part of the label. And I'm looking at it going, it's me. That's me. And I'm a bit jet lagged. And they're like, yes. We've done branded Coke bottles for all the artists. And it's like, yeah, but it's me. It
just start holding it up next to your face. Like, look,
I've got it. It's just over there on my mantelpiece. I still have it. And then you just go, this is completely ridiculous. But then, 3 weeks later, you're being heckled by drunk arseholes in a little club in Soho because they're coked off their faces and they want to throw plastic beer glasses at you, and that's why the job is beautiful, because it can have all those different textured bits.
Wow. Just incredible.
Just shouting to these hecklers back to them, don't you know who I am? I'm on a Coke bottle.
I'm on a fucking Coke bottle. The thing that I always kind of, you sometimes life hands you these little moments where you kind of, it sort of shows you where you are and how far you've come and all that. You get these little signs. And I remember, and again, I'm going to do an awful name drop, but a few years ago, I was a guest on the Jonathan Ross show, and that's filmed in London studios on the South Bank. And I used to do street shows on the South Bank. So from my dressing room, which was next to Christina Ricci's dressing room, from my dressing room out the window, I could see where I used to do street shows. And that was
That's
like,
amazing.
It's just beautiful. It's like, how far have I come? Well, literally like 50 feet, that was just beautiful. That gig, that show at that point had an audience of something like 5.6 million. So I was thinking, and it didn't go out live. So when it actually went out, I was doing a show in a basement club in Soho. So I was really looking forward to leaving the venue after the gig and watching all my notifications on, how many new people are following me on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. 5.6 million people. I got 3 new followers on Twitter. 3!
What?
People just don't like tablecloth pulling people. It's not.
Apparently not.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Still
It's
3
very funny.
more. It's better than kicking the dick.
Extreme, exactly.
Yes. But oddly enough, that went very beautifully into my next question. Because I was going to say, I saw you've done like quite a few TV shows like Jonathan Ross. You did a Duck Quacks Don't Echo as well.
Yes.
And hell, I even saw you were a consultant on A Man from U.N.C.L.E. with Henry Cavill. How did that come about?
It came about because, that was such a fun thing to work on. Henry is a lovely, 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 very handsome man.
It's because he's like a perfect specimen of a human. Let's be honest.
Honest to God, the first time, now I am, the archetypal middle-aged white cisgender heterosexual married man. But the first time I met Henry Cavill, this is true. First time I met him, he was. He'd just come off a scene in that movie where he was all in kind of SWAT team, like commando stuff, and he had mud all over him and like guns and stuff, and he had like a big fake sort of smear of blood on his face. And he came over and said, "Hi, I'm Henry," and I literally went, "Oh, hello." He's a whole hunk of man. Anyway. No, that happened because it was a Guy Ritchie thing, and he had this bit where he wanted Henry Cavill to pull a little tablecloth as part of a being cool Henry Cavill thing. So they just, did a call out, who's the guy for tablecloths, and it comes to me. I'm the tablecloth guy, and it was lovely. I went down there for I was on set for a whole week. Ended up doing, the way films are. You end up working the last afternoon of your week, and for the rest of the week you just sit around doing nothing. But it was really fun, and it's always, I've been lucky enough to be in a couple of featured and working on a couple of sort of big movies, and it's just always amazing seeing these huge teams of specialists all work together to make this thing happen. It's fantastic. And everyone was lovely. Henry was lovely. Guy Ritchie was great. It's such a fun thing where all you have to do is walk in and go, okay, just pull it there. Yeah, perfect. There you go. That's it. That was my job. Just pull it. Pull it really fast. Yeah, well done. There you go. Yeah. Congratulations. Where's my check?
Yeah.
What other movies have you worked on? I only saw Man from U.N.C.L.E.
I was in a film, and this is the typical, they cut me out of a film. I was in a film that was made in the 90s called Funny Bones, which is a lovely, lovely film. And I can say that because I'm not even really in it anymore. I filmed 3 scenes for them, and they cut me out of all of them, except for there's one scene where you can see me in the background, except you wouldn't recognize me because it's, from the 90s and I look different. I have hair and I'm young. But it's a film, it's got Jerry Lewis in it and Oliver Platt and what else it got? It's got a bunch of really interesting people in it. And it's about variety. And it's got a performer in it called George Carl, who is an old vaudeville performer who is now left us, who is my hero. He is a slapstick performer and he's my absolute hero. So to have been in a film, even in the vaguest sense with him, is like, that's my sort of connection to the world that I love, But it's a really nice film. It's about comedy and variety, and it's largely set in Blackpool, but it starts off in Las Vegas. It's a really, it's Lee Evans is in it. That's it, isn't it? It's really worth watching. It's a lovely film.
A side note, and I do need to ask a question, because according to your IMDb, you're on a show called What's Up, Doc in 1993.
I certainly was.
What was that? What were you doing, and how did that come about?
What's Up, Doc was an ITV Saturday morning children's show that went up against, I would guess it went up against Live and Kicking.
Oh, that'd be why I've never seen it. I was watching Live and Kicking.
Of course, so was I. I was on it. It was presented by Andy Crane. Do you remember Andy Crane? He was like the successor to Philip Schofield. He was blonde. He was a nice enough man. And it was called What's Up, Doc because it was all kind of themed around like Warner Brothers cartoons. That was their kind of thing. It was filmed in Maidstone. It wasn't very good, but it was fine. It was a Saturday morning for kids. But yeah, they just, that was again in the 90s where they kind of, I don't know, they saw circus acts and variety acts as a thing that could go on television, which you don't really get now except for on shows where people then judge them, So yeah, I just got asked, to come down and the piece was, I did a prop called a devil stick. Devil stick is like it's a stick where you kind of bat it between 2 other sticks and spin it around. It's an awful prop. It's really, my wife hates it the most. Whenever I have an idea, which I really do, but occasionally I've had an idea about a devil stick thing, and she's like, no, fucking hate devil sticks. No. I was like, oh, okay. And she's right, they are awful. But yeah, I just did I explained how it works and said that kids should learn it, and then just did a little routine. It was, it's nothing, but that's another perfect example of what I was talking about earlier. So that was shot in Maidstone, Saturday morning live. So I went down on Friday night, did the rehearsal, stayed overnight in a hotel, did the thing in the morning. It all went fine. And then on the afternoon, I went home. And then the following Friday, I had a club gig in Leicester. I remember this vividly. And I didn't have any money. I was still a street performer. This was when I was in my very early 20s, just starting out, kind of, maybe doing it 5 years. I was skint, so I could get myself to Leicester to do the gig, but I couldn't afford a hotel. So that night, after the show in Leicester, I just went to the big railway station and just slept on the station platform with the intention of getting the first train out in the morning. And I got caught doing that by the station supervisor, who recognized me from What's Up, Doc the previous week. And it blew his mind that someone that he'd seen on television wouldn't have money for a hotel, But it's like, well, they ain't paid me yet. So, yeah, you know, but that's that's a perfect example. Sleeping rough the week after you're on television.
That's just nuts. But let's go back to your the acts that you do. So you also do a show called London Varieties. Packed with collabs, one-off moments, and interviews with some unbelievable guests, including a massive hero of mine in Eddie Izzard.
Eddie.
I was so jealous when I read that. I was like, that is incredible.
Well, because me and Eddie knew each other from way back because we were both street performers at Covent Garden at the same time. So we knew
blew
each
his
other
mind.
from then. Yeah. Listeners, you cannot see the face. the mouth is hanging open.
Yeah, that's so.
Yeah, no, he was a street performer, and we used to work the same pitch at Covent Garden. So yeah,
that is amazing. Yeah, my whole question's just like gone because I'm like, this is just an unbelievable moment right now, and I get to share this. See, you know, I talked earlier about how you got to travel the world and do what you love. I was like, doing this on a weekly basis over Zoom is literally what that is what is for me, is what is traveling the world for you. Like, just love it. But anyway, back to the question. Where did the whole concept come from? Why did you think, you know what, I'm going to interview some people live on stage? And
because it did come from a very sort of specific place. Because throughout my career, a thing that kind of dogged me a little bit is the assumption that a variety artist, a speciality act, is dated, is something that existed in the past but doesn't exist now. You know, that people think about music hall and variety as a thing that was huge, but then they closed all the music halls and it stopped. And that's of course that's bollocks. You know, you close the venues, the acts don't just retrain and get jobs as plumbers, they find other venues to work in. So, you know, the art form, and in pretty much every other country except Britain, you know, it's thrived since then. So I got a bit annoyed by people going, oh, well, you know, it's you know, I used to get called a sort of retro act, and it wasn't meant as a diss, but it wasn't, you know, I see myself as fairly cutting edge. I do tricks no one's ever done before. I'm, you know, so what I thought I'd do is do a few seasons of a show where I mixed my sort of favorite acts from not a long way in the past, but a little in the past, you know, the heyday of sort of light entertainment, and mix them on a bill with my colleagues from now, the cutting edge, you know, the stars of sort of new cabaret and burlesque and variety, to show that although they're generationally apart, they are the same art form, and you can mix them and the same audience will like, you know, and it worked. It was, you know, I had on a bill, I had an act called East End Cabaret, who are two women. They're not together anymore as an act, but they were very funny musical act, absolute filth, like in just so filthy. And I had them on the same bill as Paul Daniels and Debbie McGee. And Paul and Debbie loved them. I loved them. You know, of course they did, because, you know, because all you need to be is good. That's all you need to be, you know. So yeah, it was really fun putting these bills together of, you know, so if you like this person, you might come to see the show, and I'll guarantee there'll be other people that you've never even heard of, but you'll become fans of. You know, that was the idea. So I mean, I did 3 seasons of that. The last one, who did I have on the last season? I had Lionel Blair. I mean, you know, and that was so right. So here's how I did Lionel Blair, if you pardon the expression. So I opened the show and I did about 20 minutes of stuff, and I didn't announce any guests. I said there'll be a special guest. It's a secret. You have to trust me. And luckily, you know, enough people did. And I showed this video on the screen of a Royal Variety show from 1963, I think. And it had a sequence of Lionel Blair and Sammy Davis Jr. doing a tap dance together. And it's just beautiful. These two guys in their prime doing this super cool, like, you know, challenging each other with tap steps. And I showed that, and I just went, look at that. Should we meet one of them? And people just went, what? And I brought a line of blue, and they went nuts. Because it's like, yeah, you've just shown this guy's been doing amazing things for decades. And now here he is in this little basement in the West End, and he's going to talk to us about his life. And he was wonderful. He was great, you know.
Incredible.
That's incredible.
So it's so fun to do that stuff.
That's amazing. I must say, I know we briefly touched on your YouTube page at the start of this, and I made a note of it here because I want everyone to please go check out Matt's YouTube page, because it's a treasure trove of great content, especially because now you said you only just started it. You know, there's performances, tricks, there's vlogs, and you're very open and honest about your mental health as well, which I really respect. There's tons of, including what I absolutely love, and I'm going to do them because there's a tutorial on how to juggle, like 5-part thing. I can't juggle. So I was like, I'm going to try and watch Matt's videos and see if I can learn how to juggle now. This is my little challenge to myself.
Awesome.
I absolutely love it. But is there like a particular thing of yours that you may suggest to someone to seek out to get a feel for what you do, whether it be on the channel or wherever else on the internet? Just people that may not have heard of you who are listening to this.
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, on the channel, there's a little sort of intro video that kind of sums up who the hell I am and what I think I'm doing. So I guess that. Although, you know, if you go to Google and put in Mat Ricardo GIF, then I'm pretty sure you'll get a tiny little GIF of me doing the 2 tables, 1 tablecloth trick. So that pretty much sums it up. Human GIF, that's me.
That's when you know you've made it.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I'm a fucking GIF now. I just need to be a meme, and I've completed the set. Occasionally
on Twitter or something, someone will do one of those threads that says, you know, what GIF best represents you? And I was like, haha, I've got my own GIF.
I just realized there was one of your tricks I meant to mention earlier and I completely forgot. And I remember watching it. I think I've shown about 10 people now, and every single one of them has had my reaction from the intro of "fuck off." That is the a pyramid of like 6 glasses with cloths in between them, balanced on a knife in your mouth.
Yes.
What? How? Why? What? How did that come about? That is mental.
That, I think you'll find, is a useless skill. That has no application in real life at all. There's no point where that's going to be useful, is it? That one was challenged to me. There was an old act, a guy called Uno Lanka, who used to do a version of that trick. He didn't have as many glasses, and he used to have a rubber ball that went underneath the bottom glass and sat on the thing in his mouth. And I realized, and I was challenged to learn that trick, and I realized that the rubber ball made it easier. It's one of those things that makes it look harder, but actually it makes it easier because it reduces friction because it's rubber. So it makes it an easier trick. So I did this whole thing in a show about, he's doing it the easy way, I'm going to do it the hard way. So I did it with more glasses, and then I pulled the cloth and he didn't pull the cloth. Yeah. So that's an example of one of the things I like to do a lot, which is take a trick from decades ago that no one's doing, and then learn it, and then improve it, put my twist on it, develop it. And that's key. You know, it's like there's a YouTuber called Kirby Ferguson, who I'm a big fan of, and his whole thing is culture is remix. Everything is remix, and it's really true. So you take an old trick, you remix it to make it something new and something hopefully better, and then hopefully in a few years down the line, there'll be someone younger than me who will take that and make that even better. You know, and that's how, you know, for want of a better phrase, culture develops, if you can call juggling tricks culture.
So before we start wrapping up, I did want to mention like the fact you're also a writer. You've written articles for several magazines and blogs and whatnot. How did you get into doing that? And do you write about like different things, or is it like a general topic that you talk about?
It's I mean, you know, I've always written for my shows, you know. I just really like, it sounds really weird. I'm a huge reader. I'm the son of 2 librarians. You know, I like reading and I like writing, and I always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to again, it's a learning a new skill. I wanted to learn to try, you know, to be a good writer, or at least a decent writer. And also, you know, you mentioned mental health stuff. I write a lot about mental health stuff, and I think the act of writing about something that is painful makes it less painful, both for the person writing and for the people reading. So yeah, it's, and you know, the internet, don't forget that I'm old. So when I first started doing this, there wasn't an internet. And, you know, I would dream about writing a column for Time Out. That was my big dream. And I ended up once writing a piece for Time Out, and it was like, ha, awesome. But now the internet, I mean, I say now, the internet's not new now, but you know, the internet is this brilliant platform where if you want to create something, whatever format it is, whether it's writing or a video or music or whatever, you can share it, and anyone that likes it can consume it. And it's just this beautiful egalitarian thing. And there's nothing to stop me writing. There's no reason I shouldn't be writing if I want to write, you know. So it can be a more pure experience. It can be, you know, I've got some thoughts I want to write about. I can do it. I can put it up on my website, and if anyone reads it, great. And that's lovely. So yeah, you know, I've enjoyed writing. I am currently 2 chapters away from the end of a book, which hopefully one day we'll find a publisher. And yeah, it's a nice skill to keep trying to get better at.
Absolutely. Amazing. I mean, going back to the mental health sort of stuff, obviously you're an ambassador for Brainstorm.
Yes.
I read, yeah. Did you want to talk about that briefly? Because
sure,
what exactly is Brainstorm?
Brainstorm is a Hong Kong-based media, I want to say empire, but it's really not an empire. It's just some people on a website. It's a media company, I guess, who are mental health focused. They produce, they have shows on Hong Kong radio, and they do podcasts, and they do, you know, lots of different sort of multimedia stuff, all focused on mental health. And yeah, no, I've written some bits and pieces for them, and I've done a short series of pieces for their radio program, which I've never heard because it goes out in Hong Kong, and it's been a while since I've been to Hong Kong. And yeah, it's just super nice to have anyone, you know, want to, I don't know. It's nice that anyone thinks that my thoughts and feelings about this stuff is worth promoting. You know, that's very nice. And I think, you know, with mental health, you know, I suffer from, well, I live with anxiety and depression and OCD, and I am medicated. And I think that there's still, even in this day and age, there's a ridiculous amount of stigma that people don't want to talk about that stuff. And it's just an illness, you know, it's just like a broken leg or of the flu or whatever. It's just a thing, you know, that you can treat, or, you know, if you can't treat it, then don't run on that broken leg for a while, you know. So I think talking about it, even if, as is happening now, even if you're not saying anything of any great wisdom, still the act of saying, well, this is a thing, lots of people have it, I have it, deal with it, you know. If it makes anyone feel uncomfortable, then fuck them.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
I mean, like you said, there's so much stigma these days. Like, obviously last week, this is going out in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, but Mental Health Awareness Week was last week, and I think it's massive to talk about it, especially like because obviously male suicide is absolutely huge at the moment. Because obviously back in the day, we had this conversation with someone else we had an interview on Friday. You know, Jay made a comment like, back in the day, it'd be like, I am man, I don't talk about feelings, I just kill, eat, and sex and all that sort of stuff. And I think that
Sums us up quite well.
Well, pretty much, yeah. But so, like, almost back in the day, men were taught not to talk about it. Like, it's not okay to cry. It's not, but it is. It always is. It's, you know, it's, everyone should talk about it, and I think people should talk more about it. We should probably never stop talking about it. Let's just all talk about it for the rest of our lives.
The idea that your emotions, that expressing how you feel inside is something that is gendered, it's just completely absurd.
It's mental, isn't it?
But the idea, you know, it's such an old idea, but does still exist, that men are expected to be kind of stoic, and it's like it's so powerful to say, that hurt me, that thing that happened, it upset me, and now for a couple of days maybe I'll be a bit shit. You know, and that is how you affect change and how you affect understanding.
Absolutely. Just, beautifully put.
Thank you.
Tom, before we start wrapping up, have you got any more questions, my friend?
One more. Mr. William Regal.
Yes.
Just because I'm curious to know how you guys became friends.
I love William Regal. Obviously, I was a fan of his before we were friends. He is my favorite wrestler. I have told him this, that I have ripped off a couple of his facial expressions for little moments in my show because he's the best at it.
He is.
He's the best at that sour face, that look of disdain for your audience. Oh, I love it. So we started following each other on Twitter because he describes himself, because he's a big fan of variety and stuff. He describes himself as a pro wrestler and a turn, like an act, because in his eyes, correctly, pro wrestling and what he does and what I do, they're very, very similar, and they come from the same place. Professional wrestling comes from music hall. We all, we have the same roots. So I noticed that he referred to himself on Twitter as an act. So I messaged him and said, I really appreciate that. And we just started talking. And this is a long, long time now. And then we just started sort of talking to and fro. And there was a moment where there was a slight running gag where we would text each other where we are. So I would say, because I would always be in some shitty club in, some shitty town. So I would say, I'm in, not that Leeds is a shitty town. I really like Leeds, but I'm just using it as an example. I would say, I'm in a leaky, damp dressing room in Leeds. I've just changed in the toilet, and he'd go, I'm backstage at the, so-and-so arena, 30,000 people out there. It's like, okay. And then one night I was doing this gig. This is such a weird story. I was doing a gig in Norwich. There was like this sort of all-night party thing. I forget what it was called, but it was really fun. And the headliners were, do you know the old Northern soul band, The Selector?
No.
It's classic ska band from like back in the day. With their lead singer is this woman called Pauline Black, and she's hard as nails and gorgeous, and they're so cool. They're so cool. And they were the headliner, and I was basically supporting them. But there was an issue with their travel. They had to leave early. So I got put on after them, which is really wrong, because no one had come to see me. They'd come to see the fucking Selector, one of the greatest ska bands of all time. So I texted Regal and said, got a good support band tonight. I'm being supported by the Selector. Because he's a huge Northern Soul fan. So we just started joking. And basically, we... the next time he was in town with WWE doing a Raw at the O2, he said, "Come down, we'll hang out." I interviewed him for a podcast that I was doing at the time, but it was really just an excuse to hang out. And since then, I've worked with him in a bunch of shows that he does spoken word shows. I play with him on stage and do silly things, and we sort of collaborate. And whenever they come and to the UK and tour, we always kind of hang out, and it's nice. It's good. It's just almost a shame that he is not more well known outside of wrestling, because he's a mine of information into and craft and art and skill in terms of performance, and not just wrestling, but any kind of performance. He was in the ring. He was a great technical wrestler, of course, but more importantly than that, he was a fantastic performer. He was a fantastic comedian, and
Oh yes.
So I think everyone can learn from Regal, and I certainly have.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
So, with the world slowly reopening, what's next for you? What have you got planned?
I've got a gig at the weekend. It feels weird. It feels weird having, going on a train to a place to do a show and then coming home. It'll be nice. The diary has been empty for a year, and now gigs are starting to come in, which is really nice. I've got some travel planned, a bunch of things that I had to cancel. The international gigs that I had to cancel last year. They're starting to say, right, we're going to reboot all that stuff next year, and so fingers crossed.
Everything crossed. I really hope that this is a way out now, that we start to get back to some sort of normality, because it's never going to go back to the way it was. But
no, it's weird. I'm going I'm going into the West End tomorrow just because I have an appointment, and I've been fully vaccinated now. But I'm thinking,
Awesome.
well, I'm probably still going to wear a mask. It feels, well, it might be safer for everyone and me, so I might as well, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's this whole readjustment about, you know, getting back around people. It's going to be weird for people, I think.
I agree.
I think it's going to take some time before people
Yeah.
start trusting people. As
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
But if I ever see on your pages or sites where you're coming anywhere near Birmingham where I'm based, I'm going because I need to see your act live.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I certainly hope I do. Yeah.
Right, before we get out of it, we like to play a little game with our guests, if that is
Right.
okay with you.
Certainly.
It's called the Quick Fire Round. We ask you 5 questions and you answer as quick as possible. It's as simple as that.
Okay, hit me.
I love it. First question. Your go-to karaoke song.
Oh, I don't sing karaoke. I cannot sing. I'm one of those guys who can do a bit of everything. You know, I can dance, I can juggle, I cannot sing. Having said that, it would be a Public Enemy song. Because so my sound check, my basic radio mic venue sound check is a couple of verses of Public Enemy. So
phenomenal.
Not the answer I expected. That is beautiful. What is the best impression you can do?
I can do Alan Sugar in 0.3 of a second. How's it? That's it.
How do you take your tea/coffee?
Do not drink tea. I take coffee in a small espresso cup that I'm holding up to the webcam now that I stole from a private members club. I like a nice, strong Italian espresso, no sugar. Just hit me with the drug, man.
Who would play you in the movie of your life?
I have once been referred to as looking like LD Jason Statham. Which I think is just because I'm basically bald and British, but I'll take it. You know,
Yeah,
Take it. Why not?
LD Jason Statham's still pretty good. So.
And the last one, a piece of advice you would give to younger version of yourself.
Oh man, there's no short answer to this.
Go for it.
Doesn't have to be short.
It's the stupid the thing. Okay, this is going to get emotional. The ideas you have in your head that no one else gets, they're the right ideas. That, you know, it's good to listen to other people, but if there's something that you've fixated on that is meaningful to you, and if you can't get it out of your head, like I couldn't, then go all in and fucking make it happen. Invest it with all of your heart and your mind, and it will go into something.
I love that.
There you go.
That is beautiful. I love that. Matt, thank you so much for doing this. This has been absolutely amazing. It's been so much fun. Before we let you go, are there any plugs, social medias, any websites you want people to go check out?
All the social medias. Yeah, I mean, please do come and check out my YouTube channel. It is where I'm doing most of my performing at the moment. Yeah, it's YouTube, Mat Ricardo. I'm also Mat Ricardo, as was pointed out, with 1 T in Matt, on Twitter and Instagram. So yeah, come and follow me on all those things. If you want to see more of what I do, then it's on YouTube, or go to my website, matricardo.com. And yeah, thanks.
Matt,
It's amazing.
Been glorious. Thank you so much for taking your time out to sit. We've absolutely loved talking to you.
It's been amazing. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks so much.
Hey there, I'm Frank Guglielmelli, and I'm the narrator for the audio drama Feed, featuring such audio dramas as Bounty Hunters, Marty and Mars, Val Toby, and so much more. You can find all of these wonderful programs on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or you can go to our website at www.audiodramafeed.com. We are thrilled to be affiliated with the Chronicles of Podcast with Tom and Jamie.